Hey, hi, and howdy to all of my sweet friends. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you are new. My name is Courtney. I am a stay-at-home homeschooling mom. That does take up a lot of time, but I do love to get in the kitchen and cook. So I share a lot of food and kitchen related content here on my channel, from grocery hauls to what's for dinners, and a few other extras just popped in there every week. This week I am sharing 30-minute or less budget meals. This was such a fun one to film because when I went to the grocery store, if you watched my last grocery haul, everyone in my house was sick. We weren't feeling well. Nobody had any appetite, so I was kind of winging it. And when I was looking at everything, I was like, 30-minute meals. This is going to be fantastic. And it was. So I'm kicking it off with tostadas. This is such a cheater meal, but my family loves this one. And this is ready in like 10 minutes or less. I've got refried beans, salsa, onions, sour cream, guacamole, lettuce, cheese, and of course some tostada shells. You can put some meat on there if you want to. We just always eat it this way, and it's so delicious. And like I said, it is super fast. It really is just a lot of help from the grocery store, and you can choose your own toppings, but I highly recommend it because it is also very budget friendly if you stick to just beans. All right, crab Alfredo. This is a cheater meal because I use imitation crab, which is still high in protein, and it tastes pretty darn good, and it makes a really delicious Alfredo for some pasta, and it's super fast. But we're gonna start it off with some garlic bread. If you've got real butter, that's great. Mine was super hard, and I really had not thought about taking it out to soften, so I'm just working with this lube on it, which it's a lot cheaper if you're looking for something budget friendly, and it still tastes pretty good. It is margarine, it is not butter, but in a pinch, or if you're looking to save some money, it is a really awesome substitute. I also like the Country Crock brand for this. My kids put it on their waffles and stuff like that, so I always have this on hand because butter is super expensive. All right, so to that, I've got some of my confit garlic, which I have made on my channel before. If you have not seen that or have questions about it, I do link it down below in the description box. But if you don't have that, you could do fresh garlic or garlic powder. Most of my life, until I started making confit garlic, I just did garlic powder and butter. Then I like to add some salt. Sometimes I do pepper. And then I throw in some parsley. You can do Italian seasoning if you want, but I always find that's a little bit overpowering for me. So parsley is just absolutely perfect. And then I'm just mixing it all together. I do have to mash the confit garlic. It spreads like butter. But I do have to really kind of work that in there. If you're just using garlic powder, it mixes in super easily. And I just have 1/3 of a loaf of French bread from Sam's Club, and I am just slathering both sides of all those slices I cut with some of my homemade garlic butter. Don't worry if you have some left over. We're gonna throw that in what we're cooking, and it's gonna be fabulous. It's just gonna add some extra flavor to it. So I don't measure things, I just kind of eyeball it, and when I have extras, I can always find a use for them. And butter, of course, always has a place in everyone's kitchen. So I'm just using the little end right there to kind of finish everything off. I do that, I use the ends, I don't waste anything. Slap it all together, and then I'm gonna wrap it up in foil, and I bake this at 350 for about 15 minutes, and I just keep it wrapped nice and tightly in some foil, and it really is delicious every time. It's soft. If you want to toast it, you could lay it out flat on a cookie sheet and it'll get crispy and toasty, but my family likes it just nice and soft like that. All right, so I bought this big pack of Crab Delight, which is just imitation crab. It is, I believe, 1 pound. Yeah, it's 16 ounces. I can see it right there. And I only used half of it, which was 8 of these little leg pieces. So I wrapped the other half up and put it in the freezer. Half a pound was perfect. Then I took a little help from the grocery store and opened up 1 jar of Alfredo sauce, but we're gonna jazz it up a little. I always add about 1/3 to half a cup of milk in the jar and shake it up to get all the extra out. Plus the sauce is super thick. We want to thin it up just a little bit. Then I'm going to go ahead and season it. Now I like to add in some pepper. Always test for salt. I'm going to test for that in a little bit because we're also going to throw in some Parmesan cheese. And of course some parsley and some Italian seasoning, just regular herbed Italian seasoning mix, nothing fancy. I know on my channel I use the Kinder's Italian blend quite often, but on this one I'm just using the run-of-the-mill cheap Italian seasoning you can pick up at Dollar Tree or Walmart or anything. And then parsley. I love my dried parsley. If you've got fresh, even better. But I love keeping this on hand just because it really kind of pops dishes and makes them look really nice and finished. And it adds a nice bit of kind of like a grassy, earthy flavor to everything. And I really like that green flavor. It's not overpowering. It just brings something nice to the table. So I stirred all that in. I'm going to go ahead and mix in my cubed crab. I cut it in small pieces, like nice little bite-sized pieces. So you can get a piece of that with some sauce and some noodles twirled on your fork and get a perfect bite. I really do enjoy a perfect bite when it comes to pasta. We're gonna mix that in. And like I said, I'm also throwing in some Parmesan cheese. I shred mine because I get a big block from Sam's Club, but the green shaker tub is perfectly acceptable here too. So if that's what you got, throw some in. There is no shame in that green shaker tub Parmesan game, y'all. We're just gonna give that a good mix. And here you wanna definitely taste test and see if you want any salt in here. Parmesan's salty, so I always like to add that first. And of course, if you want some heat, red pepper flakes are the way to go. All right. It is time to go ahead and make some broccoli. I wanted to serve a veggie with this. I've got some frozen broccoli, so I put a tiny bit of oil in my pan and the rest of that garlic butter we made, tossed it right on in there. Then I'm gonna dump this bag of frozen broccoli in there. I put it in the microwave for about 3 minutes to mostly thaw it out. And now we're gonna give it a nice saute. It's gonna get like some little crispy ends on it and everything because we're gonna pan sear it and give it just some extra flavor. Plus we've got that garlic butter in there, adding tons of great flavor, and you can kind of add in whatever you want. Here I'm adding in that Kinder's Italian blend that I talked about because it is definitely one of our favorites. And I'm also adding in lemon juice. I'm pretty generous with that because we really like that bright citrus pop. You don't have to do that. Kinder's makes a cracked pepper Parmesan that is absolutely delightful on broccoli as well. If you have not seen that, do check it out. It's really, really delicious. But I just kind of went this direction tonight just because I felt like it matched what I was cooking a little bit better. And of course, you always want to add some salt and pepper as well. You could do red pepper flakes if you want like a nice bite to it. Totally up to you. Just kind of play with it and make it how you want. But this will really dress up some frozen veggies so they're not so plain and you don't get as tired of them. You can do this a million different ways. You could change your seasonings up every night and have broccoli every night, and it'll be dinner that's different. But here you go. There's the finished meal. It was so, so good. This is one of our favorites, and it's so easy. It comes together in 30 minutes or less, and it's so simple, and it is really budget friendly because I could have gotten 6 to 8 servings out of that pasta, y'all. It was a lot of pasta. All right, let's move on to, oh man, this was so good. Okay, I was so excited about this meal, and I was also so nervous because I've made it in the past differently, and it was good, but it didn't do what I wanted. But this recipe that I used on this particular night was fabulous. This is sausage and green beans and potatoes. Oh man, it was so great because one, we were still not feeling great, and two, it's been super cold the first half of this week down here in Texas, so this was nice and warm and hearty and just fantastic. So into my pot, I threw in some butter and a little bit of oil to keep the butter from burning, and some onion that I minced up. I did have to pull out a little onion skin that snuck its way into that pot. That happens to me sometimes. Does that ever happen to y'all? I try to make sure I get all the skins out, but sometimes I find one that sneaks his way in. Then I threw in my sausage. I'm just using regular cheap smoked sausage. I got the Earl Campbell, which is the cheapest one I could find at Walmart. And I am sauteing it in this pan with these onions and a little bit of my confit garlic. You could do fresh or garlic powder. That's always a perfect substitution. Just use what you have or what you like. I just always have this because it's a favorite condiment in my household. I'm going to let that just cook for 1 to 2 minutes. And by the time I've gotten these potatoes tossed in there, that 1 to 2 minutes is up. I'm using baby potatoes, so this took no time at all to chop up. That's how I was able to get this meal done in 30 minutes or less. If you're using bigger potatoes, it might take a few extra minutes, but I think you can get it done in pretty close to 30 minutes. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm going to take the Texas Roadhouse green bean recipe and just multiply it by however many servings I think I'm going to be making on this particular night. I did it by about 4 to 5. Because not only am I doing the green beans, but I'm doing the sausage and the potatoes, and I want everybody to have tons of flavor. So I have poured in some water, and I'm mixing in my chicken bouillon. It calls for chicken broth. Of course, I don't keep that, but I do have bouillon or, any of the chicken base or any of that, and I can always just make my own broth. So that's what I'm doing here. And I did toss in some bacon bits because that is in the recipe for the Texas Roadhouse green beans. I think next time I make this particular dish, I would leave them out, but if you're just making the green beans, don't skip that. I added in a tiny bit of salt because the chicken bouillon is pretty salty, some pepper, and then I did throw in some sugar. The recipe for the Texas Roadhouse green beans that I'm linking below does call for sugar. So I did throw that in, and then it calls for red wine vinegar, which I'm now mixing in. And I know it sounds strange, but you're just going to have to trust me on this. It is so delicious. You get like a deep, rich, smoky flavor from the sausage. You get some sweetness that offsets the punch of the vinegar. And it is just fabulous. This is so, so, so good. If you do not want to put fresh onion in there because you don't want to bite into onion, make sure that you substitute onion powder because you've got to have that flavor in there. Man, this was absolutely, positively amazing. It was exactly what I was craving. It hit the spot. You're just going to want to pop a lid on this once you have all your ingredients in the pot. Crank that heat up and let it boil and simmer for 15 to 20 minutes till your potatoes are soft. The trick here is the smaller you cut your potatoes, obviously the faster they're going to cook. Oh, and the green beans, y'all. I almost forgot to tell you, you got to add in the green beans. I just use a family size can from Walmart. They're already cooked. They're just kind of soaking up some flavor in this dish. The potatoes take on an amazing flavor. This is so, so good. And I just served it with like some boxed mac and cheese on the side. I didn't do anything fancy. My kids had asked for mac and cheese, so that's just the direction I went. I always add a little extra handful of cheddar cheese to my box mix, and we had the baby shark, so it was really big noodles. All right, the last meal for this week is a beef stir fry. As long as I can remember, I've always just thrown together stir fries to use up extra veggies that I have hanging out in my fridge. And you can do it vegetarian, and you can throw any meat in there you want to. I was craving like a nice shaved beef stir fry, so I went to Walmart to buy my groceries on this particular day and came home and I had bought shaved beef. Originally, I was thinking about doing chicken stir fry, but like I said, I was craving the beef. I'm just going to whip up a sauce for this, and this is kind of like my go-to sauce most of the time when I make Asian-inspired dishes. I do some hoisin sauce. I do honey. You could always do brown sugar, but I just prefer to put honey in mine. Then I mixed in some soy sauce, some rice vinegar. I will list all my ingredients down below so you guys can make this at home. Some garlic powder, and then either do onion powder or minced onions. I have a lot of minced onions on hand because I had purchased them the other day to make some homemade mixes, and I actually really like them, so I threw those in. We're going to do just like a dab of fish sauce as well, and of course some sesame oil. It just gives it that nice nutty Asian flavor. Really, really good. Give this a good stir, and because I use the minced onions, I'm going to do this first and let it set for just a second so they start to kind of rehydrate a little bit. If you're using onion powder, no big deal. You don't have to let it sit at all. But I do have the beef to cook, so that gives me a few minutes. There I'm showing you the shaved beef I got. That's all I can find in my area, but I'm down in Texas, so we get a lot of like Mexican style cuts of meat and everything here. So this carne picada is what I found at my store, and it was perfect. Loved it. I used half that pack and I froze the other half so we can use it for something else in the future. I just put a mix of sesame oil and garlic oil in the pot, but you could just do straight up sesame or straight up olive oil, whatever you have. And then I'm going to go ahead and just salt and pepper this beef, and I'm going to add in a little bit of extra garlic and onion powder to it, just because I like the meat to really have a nice flavor. Even though we're going to be putting sauce in there, I just prefer it that way. You don't have to do it, but I do think it tastes better at the end of the day. This doesn't take long to cook at all, so I let it get mostly done, and then I threw in some chopped bell peppers. It's just a little mini peppers. I only had a couple left, so I went ahead and sliced those up, and I'm just going to let those cook for about 2 minutes. I like for them to let some of their flavor out into the dish, but stay kind of crispy. That's just the way I like it. And then I'm going to pull all of that meat and pepper mixture out of the pot and add in some fresh broccoli. This is the last of the fresh broccoli I had, and it needed to get used up. It was starting to head out the door, so we had to use it in this dish, which was perfect. I added a little sesame and garlic oil back to the pan because it had gotten a little dry, and we're just going to kind of pan sear this broccoli and get a little color on there. If you have not tried roasted or pan seared broccoli, you're missing out, because when it gets those brown toasty edges, that is such a delicious flavor. But once it has cooked to my liking, I'm going to toss my meat and my peppers right back into this skillet, because everybody's going to join the party now. We're also going to add in some noodles. I'm using udon noodles because my family loves them, but you could use any kind of noodle. Like if you have just regular pasta, like spaghetti noodles, or if you want to use some ramen noodles, it is all fine. Any of it works. Whatever you've got, just toss it in here. Same with the veggies. Whatever you have hanging out in the fridge that needs to be used up, or the frozen veggie mixes you have, toss them in here. That is fine. Then I'm going to go ahead and add our sauce back in there, and we're just going to toss everybody around, and this is done. You could probably throw like a fried egg on top. I know a lot of people like eggs in their stir fries and stuff, and you can totally do that if you want to. I didn't. I just left it like this, and I made this ahead and then portioned it out into meal prep containers because we were super busy this week and I wasn't going to have time to cook dinner one night, and it was fabulous reheated as well. So this was really, really delicious, and I loved all the fresh veggies in there. And this took no time at all. Every single meal this week, except for the sausage, potatoes, and green beans, took less than 30 minutes. That one hit the 30-minute mark. but it was well worth it because it was so wonderful. That's all I have this week. I do have a video coming out tomorrow. It is a Thanksgiving cook with me, or like a really easy, budget-friendly Thanksgiving meal that I'm cooking. So I hope you will join me for that. Hit the like button, please, if you have a minute, because it does help get my videos viewed a little bit more. Thanks for joining me, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow with another one. Have a great weekend. Bye.